that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So in terms of deciding our priorities in service delivery for the county, for example, the data we collect from the people who pay parking lets us know which are the most popular parking spots. And we are able to build infrastructure, provide services in those spots fast, because we now have that data. When it comes to single business permits, moderator, you work with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm proud to say by automating our single business permit issuance, it reduced the time taken to get a business permit from 4 to 6 months to just under 5 minutes. What happens is you log in, you select your business type, you pay, and then you print your own business permit. So when you see the Doing Business Index from World Bank coming down for Kenya, those are some of the things that have been able to bring that down. Now back to revenue collection and data, even with the businesses, because of the influx of types of businesses that register for their permits, we are now able to detect which are the fastest growing sectors. Then we're able to provide for that as we are building infrastructure to create an enabling environment for those businesses. Land rates is the same because we have automated collection of land rates. We are now able to see year by year which are the fastest growing areas based on the people who are paying their rates, and we're able to prioritize infrastructure development in that area. The biggest challenge we've been able to face as Nairobi County, and I'm sure actually as all counties, is for you to automate revenue collection, you must use efficient payment systems, like either online payment systems, your Visa and MasterCards, your mobile payment systems, M-Pesa, but very peculiarly, the law doesn't allow you to do that because the PFM Act says that counties cannot spend money at source. And yet all mobile payment systems globally deduct their commission at source, which means that if we begin to use mobile systems for efficient collection of revenue, then you're actually breaking the law. So what we'll need to do with the Council of Governors and other national organizations that deal with this is change the PFM Act to allow us to embrace mobile money. The second challenge is more of a cultural challenge with our citizens. You see, when you pay electronically, you get an electronic receipt. You have your data stored somewhere that you can even go later and download. Our typical citizen, when they're making large transactions, don't want to trust that online platform. They actually want to come, queue somewhere, and get a rubber stamp from the county and ensure it's signed by an officer to feel that they have paid. And that we can solve really by just communicating to our residents that this payment systems, this revenue automation is secure, it's efficient, and it's in their benefit that it saves them time. The third challenge that we've been able to find is enforcement. Once you automate revenue, you become so efficient that now you're able to catch the people who are either avoiding paying their fees and charges or their taxes. You're able to tell where they are, and so on and so forth. We still have bylaws that have not been changed in terms of enforcement, which means that the citizen, even who's not paying their fees, still have rights that don't conform with today's revenue collection. So we urge now our county assemblies to move a little faster to be able to create laws that are able to cater for today's world. One of the biggest benefits also we have seen by automating is the citizen today wants services now, where they are, and at their convenience, not at the convenience of the county governments, especially the urban citizen. So by having that kind of a platform, you can find people waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're doing their thing. They can log on or use their phones to pay their fees and charges, to get their business permits, to pay their rates, their rentals for their markets, and so on and so forth. So it's brought that efficiency right to where you are. On job employment, the data that we collect is so enormous by using these automated systems that now the young people can begin to create apps to be able to make sense out of that data and sell that data to the public sector or even to the private sector. Because when you keep using these devices, they are capturing consumer behavior. And that behavior is very important for marketing of goods and services, even in the private sector. So you find young people now becoming very innovative. They're creating applications that are able to mine that data so that it can be used in other areas for that kind of benefit. So just in conclusion, our experience in Nairobi has been great. The system has been embraced pretty much. We are doing now millions of transactions. Because of the number of transactions we are doing in Nairobi, Jambo Pay has become the second largest wallet in the region after M-Pesa, e-wallet in the region after M-Pesa. And it's really helped bring up our profile in Nairobi. Kiprono, I'll also I won't fail to say that in the City Millennium Index that was done in 2016, that ranks cities globally, Nairobi made it to number 11. The first city, and it was the only city in Africa. We beat Joburg, we beat Cairo to make the top 20 list. And the thing that they said made Nairobi get to that level was innovation and the real estate development. So our embracing of ICT has really put the capital city on the map globally.
Thank you very much for your very well articulated response. And I think as a chamber, what we would like to do is to organize a conference later this year in Nairobi, also as a resident of Nairobi, where we really interrogate the whole aspect of service delivery, because we've noted that you're doing a lot, but we believe a lot more can be done in terms of delivering services, especially that you are collecting 30% revenue more than you did in the past. Thank you very much.
Karibu.
We've listened a lot from the public sector. We've listened a lot from the county governments, from the national government. I think it's always good to cross-pollinate ideas from other stakeholders. And we have on this panel a few representatives from other stakeholding groups, the private sector. And I turn to Mushemi Wambugu from PricewaterhouseCoopers. You are a leading global consulting firm. And I want to ask you, how can counties ensure that ICT as a development factor is well-resourced? And what's your opinion in terms of the scorecard, or in terms of the interventions of ICT in enhancing development in the country?
Thank you, Kiprono. So one of the things that we have been doing in helping counties move forward, and indeed national government, is looking at the latent skills that we have in our youth. I was fortunate to have led the first group that sat and designed the Presidential Digital Talent Program. And that program actually allows a lot of the students who are graduating within the first 2 years of graduation to participate in national development. And what do I mean by that? We found that a lot of the needs that were needed by the central government were not being adequately met because they could not attract proper skills from the marketplace and be able to afford them. So what we did was put together a group of students, or a group of what we call interns, from all over the 47 counties. And we went through a vetting process for which we managed, and we got 100 students to participate in this one-year internship program that was launched by the president. Essentially, we took these interns and put them in different government ministries to help them with designing programs and actually executing a lot of these programs to allow for faster development within those MDAs as well as ministries. Now what has happened is that because they come from all the different 47 counties, they are now being attracted by those counties to come and create development in those areas. For instance, the Ministry of ICT, with the help of IFMIS, is rolling out a lot, maybe 47 or 50 of them, into the individual counties to help in capacity development for the rollout of IFMIS. So that is one area. Now, secondly, you talked about the scorecard. The scorecard, for the most part, has been very positive because a lot of the counties have been looking at revenue generating streams and talking about revenue systems. However, I think there's a lot that needs to be done with regards to actually setting up systems that allow for the entire development of the county. So when you talk about analytics of data, information is going to be very key, just like the Deputy Governor mentioned, in running the individual counties. And so thinking about the infrastructure that is required as a first step, connecting your CIDPs to IT strategies, because what is happening is a lot of people just say, okay, well, IT is just equipment. But IT is not really equipment. IT is a way of thinking, it's a way of delivering service to the citizens. So you start with those strategies, and then look at the priority areas as far as infrastructure is concerned in order to allow for the citizens to benefit from the services that you offer. Then third is now provide the overlay services. And overlay services will come based on need. So if you're talking about an area that is rich in agriculture, how are we going to use agriculture systems to allow for private sector injection of capital to allow for economic development in that county? If we do that, then I think that the counties will advance a lot more faster than having what we call managed environments, using brokers to try and create a scenario that is not going to benefit the county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to turn to Alice Munywa at the far left. Alice has a lot of experience in the area of regulation, in multi-stakeholder platforms, in internet governance, having worked in CCK and in other places. And Alice, I would like to hear your views about what areas of collaboration exist between the private sector and county governments in ICT, and what strategies have you formulated to ensure that you make inroads in all counties for overall ICT growth of the country?
Thank you very much. I would like to start by mentioning that our country is actually quite well recognized and acknowledged and respected globally for the approach we have taken with the private-public partnerships. But then we've gone further and actually introduced a more broader and more sustainable concept that's referred to as the multi-stakeholder partnerships. And we've done very well with that, especially in the area of ICTs, and especially the area of using ICTs for strategic, using ICTs for strategically to approach and address areas of sustainable development goals, especially to do with health, education, and others. So we are quite famous for that, and some of the concrete examples that have contributed to this are areas to do with policy, development of policy. ICT policy has involved nearly all stakeholders at the stakeholder level since 2006 when the ICT policy was approved by Cabinet. That was a whole multi-stakeholder practice in itself that has been used as a case study globally. In other areas has to do with the implementation of various technology, implementation of infrastructure, including fiber optic cables at the international level, and at the national level, terrestrial fiber. And other areas is regard the what we call post-access areas, and those have to do with the challenges regarding cybersecurity, areas to do with data protection, areas to do with privacy, and consumer protection. That's an area that is also, quite vibrant in terms of involving various stakeholders, and I think the Ministry of ICT is quite good at that. And on top of that, we've gone even further and made sure that we have a constitutional provision for multi-stakeholder partnerships, which means that public servants or any public process that involved ICT policy making or implementation has to involve the citizens at the various levels. And we see that happening at the various levels, both at the national level and at the county level, which is actually quite remarkable. However, there are challenges, and there's been quite a lot of discussions about the youth, but one of the stakeholder group that really is missing is women, and the gender issue really hasn't been taken into account. And one of the things we keep forgetting, that women actually make more than half of the population, and which means half of the electorate. And so we need to take that quite seriously, and we've just finished one very important research project that's looking at how ICT policies in Kenya are either gendering gender, and we find that really wanting, because the way, for example, women or youth use, appropriate ICTs are completely different, and they have different needs and specific needs, and especially, for example, when you look at the area of cybersecurity and online crime, they're impacted very differently. So developing policies and technical approaches towards addressing some of these challenges is very important. Regarding what has been done or what's being done, I think that has been spoken, by quite a number of my colleagues and speakers here, and I think Mushemi has mentioned some of them in terms of what is going on. And one of them, another good example is at the infrastructure level, where we have the Kenya Internet Exchange Point that has enabled exchange of local traffic at the local level, rather than what we used to have before. Our local traffic would go out internationally, then come back, which was quite a huge burden in terms of costs and affordability. Other areas are to do with the Communication Authority and the currently implement Universal Access Fund that's being implemented. That's actually that's an important one that's going to be to help counties to develop ICT-related strategies and initiatives, and to enable that level of partnership at that level. The challenges are there, and I think it's very, very important to continue using this multi-stakeholder approach, because it's quite obvious that it's very difficult for one particular stakeholder group to actually address the challenges of sustainable development goals and ICTs on their own. And so it's very important that this approach is actually adopted at the various levels, at the national level and at the county level, so that we ensure that we take advantage of what the ICTs and the internet, the opportunities, the economic, social, political, cultural opportunities that the internet and ICTs provide for this country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have a wealth of experience in ICT and in regulation, and I just want us to, I would like your opinion in terms of benchmarking of where are we as a country in terms of ICT. I mean, we compare ourselves with our peers, with our neighbors, and across continents. Are we faring well, or are we lagging?
Well, I think we're the best, if I'm to say so. And if there's one thing that our country is really well known for, is our approach towards regulation, our approach towards ICT policy, and our approach towards using the multi-stakeholder approach to use ICTs for development. And as the Nairobi County Governor said, we were number 11 amongst quite other very big cities across the globe, and at the global level, we are quite well known in terms of just our approach to internet governance. I think what is lacking is the understanding of how the internet and ICTs really can enable social economic development at the county level, and what that really means. It's not just about ensuring that the technology exists. It's also about ensuring that citizens are able to use that technology for their own social economic development. So yes, we fare well, and from a regulatory perspective, quite well actually, because of our, I think what we call a hands-off regulatory approach that has enabled innovation to grow, and that has enabled the private sector to really make inroads in this country, and not just the private sector, civil society and the international community to partner with the government and make inroads in using the ICT as an enabler for development. So I would say we have a very healthy environment.
Thank you. My last question, I think we've done quite well in terms of time, given that we started late, goes to Jerome Ocheng, the director of IFMIS. And IFMIS is an acronym, for a very important agency in government today. But for us in the private sector, that acronym sometimes, does not elicit a very positive response, because it is often used as the excuse for delayed payments to business people. County governments have expressed challenges in absorption of development funds due to the bottlenecks in IFMIS and e-procurement. And I'd like, as you respond to that and what you are doing about those delays, to also demystify IFMIS, because for us sitting on the other side of the fence, we are always told that the reason why your money is not coming is because of IFMIS. So kindly use this opportunity to also demystify IFMIS.
Thank you very much, our moderator. I think maybe if I could start with your second question. As I move along in my explanation, it will actually come and explain the first one. So maybe to quickly demystify IFMIS, like you've heard, IFMIS is the acronym for the Integrated Financial Management Information System. Basically, a computer software that is used for public sector budgeting, planning, expenditure, management and control, auditing, and last but not least, reporting. So essentially, we have an application software that does planning within government. Then we have also the element of budgeting. So you prepare your budget within that particular software. Then once the budget has been prepared, approved, and uploaded into the system, when you begin your expenditure, then your expenditure is directly linked to your budget. And finally, the system itself is able to generate reports. And beyond that, also, we are able to have reports that will help either in also auditing and generating reports that will facilitate auditing and maybe expenditure management and control. So basically, in a nutshell, we are actually talking about a software, an ERP that is able to do all these things. Now, IFMIS and payment. So like I said at the beginning, that we have a software that manages budgeting and expenditure. So basically what you're saying is that when an entity begins to spend, the first thing, the user logs in onto the system. When you want to make a requisition, we check against the budget to ensure that your budget is available for whatever you want to spend on. Then there are various levels of approval within the system, so that we really don't have a situation whereby it is only one person who is actually making decisions, so to speak, within the system, right from the beginning to the end. So we have various levels of approval and also various levels of authentication within the system. So having said that, let me also just give a brief background of what are some of the things we've done within the IFMIS system, so that I come to this to answer the second question. Well, the rollout of IFMIS, specifically to the county, started with the new dispensation. So what we did is that we first of all deployed equipment to the counties. Then thereafter, we did training, because we realized that training is a very key component, together with the rollout of the necessary infrastructure. There were issues of connectivity initially. So because of that, we rolled out the use of modems, or what technically we refer to as dongles, that were specifically designed for counties to ensure that there is security and not anybody else is able to log in into the system and things like that. So having done that, then there was the complete rollout of the system to the counties with the associated training, capacity building, and things like that. Now, the issue of IFMIS and payment, we need also to realize that within the public sector, when the process of payment is also elaborate. It is not really a one-stop process. Like I said, first ensure that you have the budget. Then thereafter, you begin your requisition and all that, up to the point where payment needs to be made. And this is where now I will clearly want to create a distinction between